All right, let's jump right in to this deep dive. We were talking about Dead End, the second book in Jerry Bader's Outlaw Rider series. And this is not your typical good guys versus bad guys story. This one is all about a world where the lines get a little blurry.
Definitely more like shades of gray than black and white.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this book takes us right into the heart of Crystal Beach Racetrack. Now, this is a place that has seen better days.
It really has. It's on its last legs. And that makes it a prime target for some pretty powerful criminal organizations.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about some serious players.
Like the Hong Mian triad, led by Benson Yeung. This guy is ruthless.
And then there's Nicky Fungo, head of the Buffalo crime family.
So you've got these two forces with their sights set on the same prize.
The racetrack.
Right. And caught in the middle of it all is Jessie James. She's an ex-jockey trying to manage the track.
Talk about a tough job.
It's not just tough. It's dangerous. Especially with Johnny Luck in the picture. He's Benson Young's right-hand man, and he's mentoring Jessie.
Mentoring or manipulating?
That's a good question. It's hard to tell with these characters, but one thing's for sure, Jessie's in over her head.
Way over her head.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about all the other players yet, like Stanley Yufu. He's the head of the Canadian branch of the Hong Mian.
The author describes him as a Chinese Jack Palance.
It's a pretty striking image.
And then there's Milton Goldstein, an old-school Jewish accountant.
Who happens to be a whiz at money laundering.
Right. Talk about an odd couple.
You've got former bikers turned lawyers like Zach Wei enforcing order for the Hong Mian.
And then there's Morris Rothman, a Jewish loan shark tied to the Italian mob.
Which is run by Albert the artist Giacometti.
Now, that's a nickname that sends chills down my spine.
It does make you wonder about the kind of art he creates. But let's talk about something really chilling. The Hong Mian's smuggling operation.
Oh, this is where it gets interesting.
They're using racehorses to move drugs.
Hiding them inside the horses during a procedure called a castlick.
For those who don't know, this is a fairly common procedure done on female horses.
Basically, they stitch the vulva closed to prevent contamination.
Right. And the smugglers are exploiting this to sneak drugs inside the horses.
It's incredibly clever and incredibly lucrative. They're moving a huge volume of drugs this way.
But it's not all smooth sailing for the Hong Mian.
No, you've got Lucy Chen Chow. She's married to a man who owes a lot of money to the triad.
And she's got a plan to skim some of their profits.
It's revenge for her brother's death. He was killed by the Hong Mian.
Talk about a risky move.
Extremely risky. But she's desperate.
And she's not the only one with secrets. Jessie uncovers Lucy's scheme.
Just by asking a simple question about lunch money.
It shows how sharp she is. Always paying attention.
Definitely learning the ropes in this dangerous world.
But things really heat up when we meet Mei Ling. She's a Chinese informant.
Beautiful and dangerous.
We encounter her during a high-stakes poker game at the King Charles Hotel.
And she drops a bombshell. She tips off Johnny Luck about the Italian mob's interest in Crystal Beach.
So now you've got two powerful criminal organizations vying for control of the same racetrack.
This can't end well.
It doesn't. The Hong Mian makes a move to intimidate some union leaders, but it backfires.
And the Italian mob retaliates.
Brutally fat Tony Verde, a key figure in the mob, ends up dead.
It's not a pretty sight.
And then the Hong Mian pulls off a stunning power play.
They use the Sokolovs. These are assassins who were initially targeting Jessie.
But they turn them against the Italian mob, taking out key figures.
And they managed to seize control of another racetrack, Woodbridge Downs.
It's a brilliant move. But it doesn't end there.
No, Edward P. Tillerson, the chairman of Woodbridge Downs, meets a rather unfortunate end.
He accidentally falls to his death at the Royal Alex Theater.
Accidentally.
Well, let's just say the Hong Mian has a knack for making things look like accidents.
Pricey.
And remember Nicky Fungo, the head of the Buffalo crime family?
Yeah, what about him?
He's not giving up so easily. He coerces Troubadour, a racehorse fixer, into sabotaging a race.
The race involves a horse called Trojan Surprise,
And Jessie's the one who executes the plan.
which ends with a controlled explosion during the race.
It eliminates a rival jockey who had wronged Jessie in the past.
And it solidifies her position as a force to be reckoned with,
But the consequences are far-reaching. Lucy Chow vanishes.
leaving behind a note that looks suspiciously fake.
Her husband is found dead,
And Morris Rothman.
suffers a brutal beating, and is forced to work for the Hong Mian.
So the Hong Mian seems to have won this round.
For now, but at what cost?
That's the question, isn't it? Back again, diving deeper into Dead End by Jerry Bader. So last time we talked about the plot, the characters, all those twists and turns.
Yeah, we left off with some pretty intense stuff.
A lot of loose ends, a lot of questions.
Like, what happens to Lucy Chow? And what about Jessie? She's gone from victim to aggressor in a big way.
That transformation is really something. It makes you think about the choices people make when they're pushed to their limits.
And the racetrack itself plays such a big role in all of this. It's almost like its own character, a fading world, a place where the rules are different.
Definitely. It's a symbol of this dying industry, and these characters are all trying to find their place in it.
Some more successfully than others.
Take Jessie, for instance. She starts out as this talented jockey with so much potential, but then her career gets sabotaged.
By AJ. That's right. And that seems to be the turning point for her.
Revenge becomes her driving force.
But does she lose herself in the process?
That's the big question, isn't it? Where does revenge end and something else begin?
And what about Lucy Chow? Her whole scheme is driven by grief and a desire for justice for her brother.
She's willing to risk everything to take down the people who killed him.
But she's up against some powerful forces.
The Hong Mian doesn't forgive easily.
And then there's Milton Goldstein, the accountant. He's a fascinating character.
Oh, he's definitely in a league of his own.
He's so comfortable in this world of money laundering.
He's good at it.
Huh.
And he seems to enjoy the challenge.
The intellectual puzzle of it all.
Exactly. But can someone like that ever truly escape the consequences?
That's a good question. Especially with people like Morris Rothman around.
Oh yeah, the lone shark. He loves a gamble.
He seems to think he can always beat the odds.
But his luck runs out when he crosses the Hong Mian.
That beating was brutal.
It showed that even someone like Rothman isn't untouchable.
And it highlights the difference between him and someone like Benson Yeung.
The head of the Hong Mian, he operates with a completely different level of control.
He's always thinking a few steps ahead.
And Johnny Luck, too. He's always watching, always calculating.
They're like chess masters playing against amateurs.
And then there's Stanley Yufu.
The mysterious figure in the background.
The author compares him to Jack Palance.
Which is a pretty chilling image.
He seems to operate in the shadows, but his presence is always felt.
And speaking of chilling nicknames, Albert the artist, Giacometti.
Yeah, that one definitely sticks with you.
He takes a very particular approach to violence.
Like it's a form of art.
Which is a disturbing thought.
Yeah.
But it fits with his character.
He underestimates the Hong Mian, though.
And that proves to be a fatal mistake.
It shows that even the most powerful figures can fall.
But aside from the characters, I have to say I was really impressed by the author's writing.
Oh, absolutely. He really knows how to create a mood and atmosphere.
The descriptions are so vivid.
You feel like you're right there in the heart of the action.
Whether it's the gritty racetrack or the tense backroom deals.
And the way he writes dialogue, it's so realistic.
It feels like you're eavesdropping on a real conversation.
He captures the rhythm, the slang, everything.
And he knows how to use silence, too, to build suspense, to make you lean in.
It's masterful storytelling.
And speaking of masterful storytelling, let's talk about that horse smuggling operation.
Oh, yeah, that was something else.
Using race horses to move drugs.
And the way he describes the Catholic procedure, it's so detailed, so believable.
You can tell he did his research.
And it makes the whole thing even more unsettling.
Because it's based in reality.
And it speaks to the creativity, the ingenuity of these criminal organizations.
They're always finding new ways to stay ahead of the game.
And that brings us to the theme of betrayal, which is woven throughout this book.
Yeah. Nobody seems to be safe. Not even those at the top.
Trust is a fragile thing in this world.
Alliances shift, loyalties change.
And nobody knows who to believe.
It creates this constant sense of paranoia and suspense.
You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
All right, we're back. And we're wrapping up our deep dive into Dead End. We've covered a lot of ground.
The plot, the characters, the dark underbelly of the racetrack.
But there are some bigger themes at play here that I think are worth exploring.
Definitely, like the corrupting influence of power.
We've seen how the pursuit of power can change people.
Sometimes for the worse.
Jessie's story is a prime example. She starts out wanting revenge for what happened to her career.
But it escalates. It turns into something more.
A thirst for control, a willingness to do whatever it takes to get ahead.
And she's not the only one caught in that cycle. Lucy Chow, too. She's driven by grief and a desire for justice.
But her actions have serious consequences.
And then you have someone like Milton Goldstein. He seems to thrive in this world.
The world of money laundering and shady deals.
He's good at it, and he seems to enjoy it.
But is there a price to pay for that kind of comfort?
That's the question, isn't it? Can you really escape the darkness once you've embraced it?
And then there's the theme of loyalty, or rather, the lack of it.
In this world, trust is a luxury.
Nobody seems to be on anyone's side for too long.
Alliances shift, betrayals happen. It's all about survival.
And the racetrack itself becomes a symbol of that.
A fading world where the rules are different,
where the past and present collide.
and where violence is always lurking beneath the surface.
It makes you think about the forces that shape these characters.
The systems, the institutions, the allure of easy money.
And the consequences of getting caught up in that web.
The author doesn't shy away from the brutality of it all.
The violence is real. The stakes are high.
And it forces the reader to confront some uncomfortable truths about human nature.
But aside from the darkness, I think what really struck me was the author's writing.
Oh yeah, his style is incredible.
He's got this way with words that just pulls you in.
The dialogue is so sharp, so authentic.
And his descriptions are vivid. You can practically feel the grit and grime of the racetrack.
He creates a world that feels real and lived in.
And that's what makes Dead End such a compelling read.
It's more than just a crime thriller. It's a story about power corruption and the choices we make.
So, to our listeners out there, what did you think?
What resonated with you most?
Did you find yourself rooting for certain characters?
Or questioning your own sense of morality?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And if you haven't already, we highly recommend checking out the rest of the Outlaw Rider series.
There are 4 more books to explore, each one delving deeper into this fascinating world.
So until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep those minds engaged.